Hello, my kako, everybody. We're just letting everybody roll in, and then we'll get started. Glad you guys got to join us tonight. We're talking about some really good stuff. We have Layana Kanoa Wong, who's also going to be jumping on a little later. He's finishing up, covering up the emo right now as we speak, and he's going to jump on. But we're going to begin with our wonderful guest that we have right now. Velina me ke aloha ia kākua pau mahalo no ko noho me mākua ke hiahi. Tonight we're going to be holding a Hana Kiaʻi Roundtable. It's been a couple months since we've done our last one. This is our 6th one so far, and they've all been so maikai, so good. Tonight we're going to be going back to the roots of Hana Kiaʻi, and it really started when Ka Hale Hoaka began. And I picked up my phone one day and I just started to videotape myself in the yard. And because I started getting these ideas or memories of things that like really helped me figure out like, well, how to be, trial and error, how to figure out how to be a mākua and raise keiki, in the most pono way. And it's always hard. It's always a struggle. We're not given a manual. And some of us don't come with the best examples or models, and so it was really a trial and error process for myself and my kane, my husband. And so I started to make these videos of things that worked for me and sharing them. But I wanted to go back to the roots of the meaning of Hana Kiaʻi, what inspired that name and why I chose that name for this little kind of like pet project that I had, a passion project. So Hana Kiaʻi, what does that mean? Hana means to feed. It means to raise, nourish, nurture, foster, and often we refer to Hana as being adopted in Hawaii, which is a very common practice. The word Kiaʻi, we especially have been hearing it more lately because of Mauna Kea. Kiaʻi means to guard, to be a guardian, guardianship, to be at watch. So when we put those two words together, Hana Kiaʻi is the ability we have as mākua to sculpt and build the next generation of guardians and storytellers. We need to give our keiki the empowerment they need to have their own voice and to be able to tell their own story and speak for themselves. Otherwise, someone else will do it for them, right? It is our kuleana to provide the tools that will create independent individuals with a strong sense of belonging and voice by allowing them to become guardians of themselves, their kino, their bodies, their emotions, their thoughts, their ohana, their home, their aina, their community, and really all the way out to our papahana moku, our earth. So we're talking Kiaʻi on a small level to a really big level. So I invited these guests tonight because when I thought of Kiaʻi, I mean, there's so many wonderful people. I couldn't fit them all on a round table tonight, but these are the people that popped up first in my head. And I was like, hey, I want to hear some of their stories, because we have the same circles of friends, but we don't always get to talk stories about this kind of stuff. And so we have Layana Kanoa Wong joining us after he pau with the imu. But I'd like to start off with my tita Anuenue Punua, who is joining us tonight. She is a kupa of Kane Ohe Ko'olau Poko o Ahu. She's a mother, educator, and a kanaka aloha aina who strives to prepare the next generation of leaders with skills grounded in kupuna values and practices needed to thrive in our island nation. She was a founding teacher of Ke Kula o Samuel M. Kamakau, Pai Pai o He'eia, Hui Aloha Aina Momona, and currently the newest nonprofit, Ko'olau Aina Momona. She utilizes the education of land and resources as a source of healthy food, and she makes it a priority in her outcome of teaching. She's currently a kumu olelo Hawaii at Punahou, and she continues to focus on the ohana as an integral part of a child's educational foundation. The integration of the moon calendar in her curriculum includes daily calendar readings of farming and fishing. The familiarity of the moon within the classroom has also helped to guide the types of activity lessons she chooses to do on a daily occurrence, as well as help behavior and mood predictions of our keiki. I would love to talk more about that. She is a mother to 3 beautiful young wahine, Ko'iahi, who's 16, Ma'aloa, who is 15, and Kulaʻilaʻi, who is 12. Aloha e anuenue.
Hui. Hui, aloha mai kako. Aloha. Mahalo
Aloha.
nui.
Yes, mahalo. So happy to be graced with your presence. And then, of course, we have Laiana Kanoa Wang, who is going to be joining us a little later. But I would like to just read his bio really quick for him. Kalamai. Laiana Kanoa Wang is a kumu olelo Hawaii and Hawaiian cultural specialist. He is a proud graduate of Ke Kula Kaiapuni o Anuenue and accentuated his Hawaiian immersion education with a bachelor's degree in Hawaiian studies and a master's degree in education from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. While he does not have a permanent classroom these days, he continues to educate as the Hawaiian cultural specialist in the Ho'okahua Cultural Vibrancy Department at Kamehameha Schools. Furthermore, Wang teaches the general public Olelo Hawaii daily on Hawaii News Now Sunrise's Hawaiian Word of the Day. I love watching that. His name, Laiana, means the infinite vision of light reflecting the warmth of the sun. And the way he perpetuates the Hawaiian language is a reflection of his name as well. So we'll be welcoming Laiana as he rolls in a little bit later. And I'd like to end with my kane, hano hano na ehu, Kiaʻi. Long before I met him, that's one of the things that actually made me fall in love with him, was seeing him, occupying la'au, fighting for Haloa and the genetic testing on Haloa, and so many more things, the cruise ships coming to Molokai, and the list goes on. And while we were courting each other, I was watching all of these things happen. And, although I was an immersion teacher at the time, I wasn't experiencing that type of activism in my life. And I very much, was attracted to him because of that. I was brought up to do the school of Haunani Ke and Lili Kala and John Osorio and Kanalu. But when I moved back to Lahaina, life got mellow. And so when I met Hana Hana, I was like, oh, the fire, that's the fire, So I thought, who else should be on this panel tonight? But Hana Hana Naehu, who is also a Kiaʻi loco. He's been a fish pond guardian for the last 23 years on the island of Molokai. And he really was mentored by one of the best Kiaʻi, Uncle Walter Riddy. So there's some good stories that we're going to get from our panelists tonight. And we're all mākua, we're all parents. So we're talking really about who we are as Kiaʻi, but also what that looks like now when we start to hanai or feed and nurture that to our babies, our students, the next generation. So let's begin. Woohoo. Okay, Kala might have a little cough going on. First, Nino, I'm gonna start. I'm not gonna throw it at you yet. I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to brew on it. But I'm gonna ask Hano Hano first, and then we'll follow with Anuenue. So the first Nino that I have is this slide. I have this slide that I want to share. Let me share my screen. Okay. So this is a slide that I made for this unit that I created about ku'e, or activism, and teaching kids about activism, right? And so what does Kiaʻi mean? So I put the translation here. And although I made it for keiki, it conjured up a whole lot of feelings when I showed it to Hano Hano earlier. The simplicity of it and how we could go off in tangents just looking at this thing, right? So what does Kiaʻi mean? It means to guard, be a watchman, caretaker, to watch or guard. So in the middle, you see qualities of a Kiaʻi. And then we have a lokahi, to be united, to come together as one, to be vivo ole, fearless and bold, to be akamai, real good one, to be akamai, to be smart, clever, expert, smartness, skill. So we're not just talking academically smart, we're talking about skilled, we're talking about clever, right? Being an expert in whatever it might be. Lokomai kai, to be selfless, kind, and compassionate, and showing care and kindness to others. Hilinai, trust and confidence. Confidence, I want to go back to that a little later. It's a big one, especially when we're talking about our keiki. And then the last one is aloha. Actions are always rooted in aloha, whether it's aloha ina, aloha kahikahi, and so forth. So looking at this, let's see. How does this make you feel, Hana? Do you feel like this encompasses everything, or do you think that we're missing some qualities here? And anything you want to throw out about what you think when you look at this bubble map that I have here?
Yeah, there's all different kind of thoughts running through my head. And what I keep thinking of is the next generation. And what do they need from what we've learned along our journey? And when we first had this list up, Akamai was the last one we put. My mind, the lessons I learned from Uncle Walter Reedy, being a Kiaʻi, is also knowing, like, the boundary, thread the line, like, you know. So and my, like, I fully believe that with all of my spirit. Like, I tell the kids to this day, if you cannot listen, follow instructions, be aware, be on it, and be akamai, then I'm gonna have hard time use you in the field. And so if you like, be like uncle, you like do this, I need you for be all of this right here. And sometimes you need some of these traits more than others in some examples, you know. As I looking at Vivo Ole sometimes get disguised as like crazy dumb. Like when crazy dumb, no more anybody going to help you guys. You in this alone against all odds. But because of love and aloha, I have to look stupid in your eyes for be able for do what we got to do. And because I akamai, I'm gonna take this, you know, bold stance, you know, all based on love. But it's for the it's for all of us, and I'm doing them for all of us. And so as I just looking around this circle, you can start seeing everything come to life, and it just feels like memories punching my face over and over again. And the easiest thing to do is, as I teach my children and other children, in the moment when these ideas, lessons, and memories come, I spit, I share. You pass on these lessons right here of lokahi, of aloha, of akamai, and of lokomai kai. You know, especially to the ones that super vivo ole, the mentors, because they're not mentor, they just passionate. But they gotta try and you gotta have all of this for being one successful member, one successful Kiaʻi and member of our lahui, so that we can do this together.
No, that's funny that you say like dumb, mental, right? But you're saying it in a like in the most loving way, because we've been called those things. You know,
I don't mean for offend. I don't mean
back in the
offend nobody.
No. That's what he means is like, because we know, you know, we were just talking before we came on, like in the 90s, at a time when it was still like, if you were to ku'e, you're still thought of as a crazy, the nut that is going way overboard. You know, that is over exaggerating and over dramatizing the situation, when all it was we knew the truth, and we were incredibly passionate, and we didn't know how to really channel that energy because we were so young. And so the fire was real strong. So I'm gonna hand the mic over to you want to add
just for finish. I just like finish.
Yes.
What I see that me and you have done as parents is there are times when very tough, masculine men gotta show the warriors how for love, how for be gentle, how for be hina. And in the same respect, that's why good get one wahine like you, Maile, because get times where the wahine gotta show the coup. They gotta come out. They gotta slam them. They gotta be passionate, you know, because there's too often the wahines who are soft spoken, and there's too often the men that are so aggressive that they don't either or no get heard. And if you don't get heard, that you're not able to get felt, and then you're not good at being one guardian. There's a balance, and that's why being the example is the best way, and putting your kids around other examples is the other way, is the other good way. But that's it. Thank you.
Mahalo, Hana. Mahalo. I know, you
I
want
could
to
talk all night about this.
add to that?
No, I think it's excellent what you shared, and I did when I took a look at this too. It hit me because I think of Kiaʻi loco. Yeah, like when we think about the fish pond caretaker, and I remember when we were at the fish pond, and I think it was Mahina, and we were talking about it because we also dance hula, right? And there's a saying of Kiaʻi loco, but it's not just the fish pond, but it's Kiaʻiing what's inside of you. Yeah, what's iloko. All the things that you come with that and a lot of times when you look at all of these like aloha, lokahi, all of these values that we value so much, whatever trauma we had, right? It's there. So it's about nurturing those things. And I mahalo you, Hana, for talking about Vivo Ole, because you're right, like especially for Akane, and you're like that crazy. Our Kane Hawaii, unfortunately, are so misunderstood, and it's misunderstood because it doesn't fit the mold or it doesn't acknowledge the eha, right? And the eha, like you cannot be the expression of aloha, which a lot of times that's where the core of it for our Kane is. This eha is so hard, but it's not okay to cry. It's not okay to do this. It's not okay to be this way. And even for our wahine, right? So we've come to a point where we have to be the cool, which is also it's good, but there's also needs to find balance for us too. Like I think a lot of times the wahine, we so cool that we what I've seen in particular in my line of work, working with little keiki, yeah, the boys get ma'a to being under that shelter of the mother that's constantly protecting him from being that, like exerting his self. And so as a in all the things that I do, I find myself as a fish pond caretaker, whether it's in your local i'a of a classroom or a local i'a of a office building or office work. I always try to figure out like what are those things that we're trying to tend to so that we can be productive and be I guess productive or positive, but I don't like to sound positive as everything is good. Like it's constantly maintaining these things and addressing all the things that get a little bit out of balance and kind of nipping it in the bud kind of thing. Not that I'm good at that all the time, but if you are aware of that and you are and that's the kuleana of the Kiaʻi, right? We're constantly watching and paying attention to the physical environment, even the spiritual environment, the emotional environment. We know, trust your na'au, right? Trust the na'au and trust that, we have higher powers we believe in, our kupuna or higher, guide us in all the ways. And sometimes we don't always take the time to listen to that. And I feel like that's kind of what a Kiaʻi has to do. Ground yourself in all of these actions so that we produce good people and produce good outcomes and productive of our future to be more healthy. I think that's the word, healthy. Yeah. I hope that was okay.
That was so my kaʻi. Mahalo. I loved it. I love how you went right. You guys both went right back to the Kiaʻi loco thing, you know. And it was so interesting. Recently, we did a PD, and Hana was using the metaphor of a loco fish pond, kind of like a classroom, right? And that's both of you guys. Like you guys started in the loco and everything you learned there can be applied to like anything in life. I was just blown away, like the level of metaphors that you can make with a local and the job of a Kiaʻi local can be applied to so many things. So I love that you touched on that as well. Let's look at our next Nino.
Wait, babe.
Oh yeah, what's up?
Laiana stay inside.
What?
Yeah,
Laiana.
he stay.
Laiana, you stay.
Yeah.
Hey, Laiana. Aloha.
Aloha kako.
I just introduced you, and we just found Nino Ikahi. So would you be willing to answer? I'm going to reread it. Hiki?
Okay, yeah, he
Okay.
you know, Kala might jump in late, making
Okay.
making emu right outside, and I got like back and forth. So mahalo for understanding, and
Oh, mahalo for jumping in. That was quick.
Yeah, love you, brother.
you guys too. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. So I shared the screen, and I'm going to reshare it. I made this. I think you might have seen it. So I had it for a papa that I was teaching. Basically, can you guys see it? Am I sharing it?
I saw him earlier. Get access to him.
Try again. Let me try again. Oh, you know. Okay.
Okay. Mahalo.
Okay. So I made it for a papa that I'm teaching, 6th graders, you know, Papa Eono. And I thought, hey, I could use it to start our discussion tonight and defining what Kiaʻi means, and then qualities of a Kiaʻi. And so these are just some, not all, of course, you know, lokahi, vivo ole, akamai, loko mai kaʻi, hilinaʻi, and aloha. And Hana was talking a little bit about the vivo ole thing and how
Not
I
if you see me. Hi, boy. You just went water polo. You just went hammer Iolani. Fano. 7 goals. Proud of her.
Yeah.
We're gonna play KS now.
Woo! Mai
I'm putting,
kaʻi.
oranges and stuff.
Mai kaʻi loa.
Love it. Tekulem.
So we're just
Yeah, mahalo. I love this. I love this graph, and I think it's such a great starter though for the keiki to start tapping into, because they hear Kiaʻi, right? Everybody see Kiaʻi now with the Kiaʻi Mauna movement and all this kind of beautiful action that's going on in our lahui, and we see the Kiaʻi vai, protectors of water, and all of these important elements. We have our Kiaʻi loco, as Anuenue and Hano, you know, beautifully alluded to and shared about. And no, I think this is a perfect starting point to have, you know, some of the things that I might consider building upon what is already excellent about this is, you know, for Kiaʻi to be onipa'a, and, you know, to be like that opihi on the rock that can endure the poundings of the waves, but stays onipa'a, stays steadfast. Because, you know, as we, you know, as Kiaʻi and many other families who were trying to build more Kiaʻi, it's not always an easy walk, and it's not always the most, you're not always getting everything going your way as on Kiaʻi. And plenty times you're dealing with forces that have been established to dismantle Kiaʻi or to disrupt systems so that it can be, the agendas can be pushed forward in a different way. And so having Kiaʻi makakau to onipa'a with aloha, to hilinaʻi in the mana of what they have from their kupuna, to do it with vivo ole and fearlessness. I think all of that. So I would just add onipa'a in there as one of the things to add to that, is being steadfast. And yeah, like for our ohana, like with my babies, me and Cami, my late wife, one of our big push was to have our babies be strong in the protection of Kaho'olawe and the kuleana that was kind of set up and led by the Uncle Emmets, who we honor, as well as the Uncle George Helm, two amazing Moloka'i ohana that, you know, especially Uncle George, who sacrificed his life. And recently we lost another warrior who has been serving the Moloka'i community for a very long time, Uncle Emmet, Dr. Emmet Aluli, who was one of the founders of the Protect Kaho'olawe ohana. And for us, we kind of following in the footsteps or in the wake of the va'a that they've guided and that they've led or that they've trailblazed, and we following in that trail, the hui ala loa, which is a very strong Moloka'i roots element, that the practice and the knowledge of being a kia'i of the ala loa was taken over to Ka Ho'olawe. And so as we look at the kia'i today, we cannot forget those who came before us too. And so in being steadfast, being onipa'a, is also remembering and acknowledging those amazing kupuna and fearless warriors who came before us, who sacrificed so much, who did it when it wasn't a cool thing, when it was, like they were being called out. Uncle Walt then were called crazies, were called radicals, were called, and our warriors had to endure a lot of that, from all that namu from everybody, but they knew their mission was powerful, and they stayed onipa'a in that. And so I love that. I love the discussion on building our kia'i and starting it with values for them, and giving them those opportunities to test those and to challenge those and to build upon them. I think that's a critical part. And so that means they need experiences. They need to have moments and opportunities. And so as Ohana, and I'm super grateful because Anuenue has a program that my babies are a part of called Ko'olau Aina Momona, where they give our keikis opportunities to endure this, to take on the challenges, to ku'e and to hold signs, or to feed their community, or to rally and cook. And so there's so much more that we can touch upon, but it's about creating experiences for our OPO, and being intentional about that too. That's all.
That was a perfect segue into my next ninao, Layana. That was so my ka'i mahalo for that mana'o. My next ninao, I guess we'll go to Anuenue, if that's okay. Layana touched a little bit about his family's involvement with Protect Koho'olawe o Hana. And so that ties into my next ninao. When and how did you introduce your keiki to the kuleana of Kiaʻi? Of course, you were Kiaʻi before you had your keiki, but was there a certain instance where these qualities were instilled in them and you saw them manifest? Can you share a little bit about something that might have an event and experience that you shared with your keiki?
Wow, that's a I can't tell you like the one moment. But I know, like all of us before we became Makua, the passion of Aina, and just making sure that our home, we kiaʻi our Aina, we kiaʻi our home, and make sure that we can still live home, is a pinnacle thing. And for me too, it wasn't like I went to Hawaiian studies. When I graduated from high school, everybody told me, why are you gonna do that? We were so told not to do those things. And I don't think there's one moment, but I think I shared this with Layana a long time ago. And I might have been like in 7th grade, and I went to a ho'omau, and maybe Layana was one of the keiki punana leo at the time. And I sat in there and I thought, all these keiki are introducing themselves in Olelo Hawaii, and I had no clue, and it inspired me so much that I said, I'm gonna learn Hawaiian. I went home, opened my dictionary, try and just say the ho'olauna, and that was my push. Like, okay, from now on, I'm just gonna learn Olelo Hawaii. And I didn't know any other school, and my ohana did all go to Kamehameha, except, but I never got in right away. So I thought, okay, but I tried. And when I got there too, even then, there's all these roadblocks, right? Like, we only have 2 Olelo Hawaii classes. So how about take Japanese? Oh no, I'm not taking Japanese. I'm taking Olelo Hawaii. I'll take any other class but Japanese, just because I didn't want to go down a different path, and like I think about that, and all the people in the community that have come into my life are really from first Olelo Hawaii as my kahua, and then it opens up the next layer, right? Then you start to learn, like, oh my God, like all these other things. We couldn't Olelo Hawaii at one time. Our kupuna was being threatened and, punished. And so that really set the tone of where I was going. I never saw going away to college. And not that that's bad, I don't think, but for me, that was not something I ever needed to do. And for my keiki, one was o ka olalo Hawaii, ka olalo o ka hale. And even with their father, when we first met, like the first thing I said is, okay, I want to live in an ahupua'a. Okay. I want to olalo Hawaii. We're going to live in an ahupua'a so that we can have makutu makai and we're going to be sustainable, and that was a thought. And I think from then it moved into me'ai, right? And talking about the food that we eat, realizing that the majority of the food that was on our dinner table wasn't from Hawaii. And but what we're gonna do about that? We can complain, we can keep complaining, or we can start to try little things. And so just like all of us here, I think, the blessings of certain of kumu. And I can attest, and even to this day, I don't know why I have so many amazing kumu that have great, I can call them my kumu, that in all walks of things that have chosen me to be their haumana in ways. And so I can't pinpoint one exact moment, but it's the mo'olelo of that, like a mo'oku auhau, right? It's the what it was that dropped it, that made me say, I'm not gonna go away. I'm gonna raise my keiki here in Hawaii. They're gonna do olalo Hawaii. They're gonna learn how to eat from the aina. And we live on Oahu. And that's a whole nother level of, trying to find food that's grown here locally. I mean, now it's a little bit more plentiful than it was 20 years ago. Yeah. And so the realization of of trying to change the perspective and saying, no, we're not going to McDonald's. Like till this day, my keiki don't go they've never been to McDonald's unless another auntie has taken to them, or fast food. And my oldest will ku'e every time they go through the driveway. No, we don't eat that, Mom. I told auntie we don't eat that. and that's, and it is, it's challenging. And many ohana are like, what? They've never had a happy meal. I'm like, not from their mākua. I can't say that they haven't had it from other people, but it's just those little things that you when you make a choice to do it and you keep moving. And like I think Hana mentioned earlier, you model it, right? Like I'm not gonna say that we don't eat, perfect. We really do. Life hits us, but we try our best and we acknowledge the times when it's like, okay, we gotta stop eating what we're eating right now and take a break. And come on, we have kalo, right? We have kalo. Let's go do that. We have certain things, and just being more aware and sharing what we have too with others. Like that's a big important part, is sharing it with other ohana, because if you're the only one out there, it gets hard. And I always tell people, build your village. You build your village, right? Then the village will take care of each other. And we don't all live in the same ahupua'a, but we pretty much live in the same, we live in a pai'aina, which even that is not that large if we look at our world. And so everything is possible. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, that was my ka'iloa. It actually put my third question together with that one. So I'm thinking that maybe I should just combine them when I move into Hana and Laiana. So it's pretty much, talking about the qualities, and when you've seen it, were there moments when you seen them transpire? But even going farther back is my next question, is what kind of discussions did you have with your partner when you guys, became mākua, which Anuenue touched on, these types of agreements or these, pacts that we make, and this is how we want it to look, and this is how we're gonna hanai our keiki. So you can touch on all of that, Hano, if that's okay. You gotta unmute.
I know I was gonna start my conversation, my monologue, and I was on mute. Okay, so what was coming to my mind was like what Anuenue is saying. We was doing something for our culture and our aina before we had our partner, and before we had our kids. And for me, because I never have one partner and kids, I was going full blaze, nothing for lose, everything for gain, all out. And when I met you, Marle, and I met the kids, you know, like there was a reason for not go so all out for the cause, because you got to go home. A couple instances where I think our lives influenced our kids was I remember one might be the first community meeting that you guys came over to Molokai, and we went down to Kulanoivi. The kids were in a car. We went in a building. I was on shouting match. Was raging. Molokai was on fire in the wrong way. You know, everybody was at ends, and they was battling, and we was filming, and our kids was in the car, and they took the camera around, and I was filming myself of what was happening, and in the background, you remember, had Ka Hale and Kapiliula just in the car, and all you saw was big eyeballs, like you know they're seeing something. They're maybe not too sure what's going on, but they gotta feel this vibe, you know. And to me, it's like they've witnessed daddy and mommy going to go meetings, to go testify, to go to meetings like against the genetic engineering companies, when only had like 4 of us against 300, you know. And I grew up with Walter Riddy's son, and a lot of times being on Kiaʻi, you are very beloved afar, but you're not so loved right in your own place where you always trying to Kiaʻi. And I thought about that with raising my kids, because if I'm making enemies with everybody on my island because of fighting for Aina, how are they gonna treat my kids? You know, because Aina gotta win and we winning, so they losing. So how they gonna treat my kids after we win? You know? And so again, the thing go back to like old school, like when you get into one fight and you lick somebody, you pick them up and you aloha them and pow. That's the only way we're gonna live on an island like this. And I think having that in my mind set up for the transition to this next stage of life, where, you know, everybody understand that being on Kiaʻi is about making very tough decisions that benefit everybody. It just, like what Lana said, the onipa'a. Like, lucky you guys in onipa'a, because we never see the answer till later. You know, mahalo. So now, like, they all treat our kids good, but, you know, that's the kind of stuff, like, I just think about these battles that was affecting us that might have affected our kids. And I remember you, Mile, like being in La'au Point, and daddy saying La'au Point, you know what, I'm gonna bring the kids and the puppy all the way into La'au. And we're gonna walk them in, and we're gonna surprise daddy over there. And the joy and the worry when I saw you guys was unreal. You know, but to me, it's like the kids have witnessed all of that. And thank you to the Mauna. We never did force our kids for do nothing. Mommy and daddy gotta do this. We're gonna do this. This is why we doing them. Okay? We gotta do them. Okay. You guys are gonna be safe. Okay, we're gonna do them. And on the Mauna, we started asking our kids questions. And Miley, maybe you can, you know, chime in a little bit too, but that was a good moment for them, for signal to us, show us, and even communicate to us that they're ready. They know what is this, they know what this is about. They're ready. They would do whatever they gotta do. And you know, for me, it was like that, it just comes full circle, but being the example always is the way. And if you cannot be a good example, then send them to your Uncle Laiana, or send them to Uncle Hana, Auntie Milo, Auntie Anu, or something like that. You know?
Yeah, I think that we made that agreement that we would raise our children in a way that gave them these experiences, that they would be able to see it clearly for themselves and not try to force feed them anything. Really like, oh, we expect this out of you after you graduate. We expect you to do this and be just like us. So we would have these discussions, like really honoring them as not something that we own, but something that we're honored enough to sculpt and nurture, right? Hana Kiaʻi. And so when we went to Mauna Kea, you know, all through the years, it was always a choice. It wasn't like, you got to come hold sign with mommy and daddy, you got to come march. Or you like, come, yeah, okay. Sometimes they don't come. And when we went up to Mauna Kea, and our son had just become an adult. He was like 19 at the time, 19, 20. And we saw Uncle Walt. We showed up and Uncle Walt was like, oh, this is a day or 2, 3 days after the you know, when Noah and Imai guys, they were all tied to the cattle guard and so forth. So Uncle Walt said, you know, if we have to do this again, are you guys ready? And he looked at all of us and was seeing between me, Hano, and he didn't even think of Ka Hale because he still looked at Ka Hale as a little boy, you know. And you know, you get who's willing, because I cannot just ask anybody, are you guys willing? Just like how we said the traits, right? You're not going to just ask anybody to go on the front line, right? So he was like, which one of you guys are ready? And Ka Hale was like, me, uncle. And that's what Hana was talking about. And I was just like taken back, like, oh, I didn't expect that. And he's like, I've been waiting for this day my whole life, Ma. I'm ready. And that at that moment, I was just way. I was like, oh, my baby is not a baby anymore. He's a Ka Aloha Aina. And it was such a beautiful thing for him to step into that, and to know that he is Makoko. But Layana, can you please add to that? Mahalo.
Mahalo for sharing that, and I give a lot of credit to my wahine, Cami. You know, she's a mākua now for my babies and for me, but she was pretty like ahead of the game, I think, in a lot of ways, in thinking about how to set this up, even from her idea of having all the babies born at home. And that was like her first ku'e was, you know, she had to educate me on this idea of having home birth and why. And I was like, you know, like, of course, you know, like, I got you back 110%. And that was like her first, like with each keiki, was to start in that way. And to have them at home, what an honor, what a blessing, what a privilege to get to have that. To watch our wahine, you know, and all the kani here, we know, like the wahine is one of the most powerful elements that Akua has ever made, is wahine. And the fact that they can hapai to be so beautiful, to be so strong, to be so fierce, and then to be able to hanao, they're already the natural Kiaʻi example of grace, of love, of understanding, of patience, of fierceness, of endurance, of being strong, of being o'olea. And so I mahalo all the mamas out there on this call, and those who are around. They're the natural example. I had an amazing mama myself. My mama was Lili Noe. She was a koa aloha olelo. And you know, she fought for Olelo Hawaii with my dad, and they would take me to the rallies. And you know, I never know what was going on. I just was holding signs and fighting for our language in our schools, and so that we could have kayapuni, and so that, you know, I just didn't think about it till way later, and how grateful I was to have an amazing mākua, and even my dad them too. But like I just want to acknowledge the mamas first, and because I think about my wahine, and she was an amazing example in that way. And she had thought about these things, like, you know, all of them, we want them to learn Olelo Hawaii. And that was part of the requirements for me to even have a chance with her, was I had to have Olelo Hawaii checked off the box. So luckily I grew up kula kayapuni and had those amazing opportunities. But even when I was in school, I never seen a vai until I left. And it took me going to UH and getting around a lot of amazing Kanaka that were fighting for stuff, including Hano and Uncle Walter, them, who would come in and we'd rally together. Our Kanewai Ohana, who was the Lo'i gang at Kanewai, and our Molokai Ohana, we would kind of unify, form one team, and then we'd be like the front line of the anti-GMO movements, as well as Anuenuedem's Ohana. I mean, like all of our kids are all a part of this. Even these examples of standing up against the university, standing up against this Heva, And so like for our keiki, she was very intentional about we're gonna teach them olelo Hawaii and we're gonna connect them to Kaho'olawe because that was her kahua to become an aloha aina. And I fell in love with Kaho'olawe and she was the one who got me there. And then I started to fall in love with her. And so it was natural that once we had babies, they would eventually go to Kaho'olawe and take on that kuleana. And even then, even when we take them as babies or as little keiki, it's not about them being on Kiaʻi. It's about them falling in love with this place. It's about them having good experiences with this place. Because to me, that's the spark of what you would fight to protect is the things that you love and the things that you have aloha for, which I love that you have that in one of the values of a Kiaʻi is that aloha. Because, and I think even Hana, you nailed it too, is when we interface with our ohanas and our families and our friends or others, sometimes we battle and it's intense. And we oftentimes forget that aloha piece. And so things are left kind of frayed and eha and uncomfortable. And so even trying to raise them to be leaders that can challenge ideologies and thoughts and ideas and mana'o without hurting the other kanaka is trying to give them those examples too. So those are other balanced parts of being Kiaʻi. But yeah, I'm really blessed because my wife was constantly thinking about those things, those experiences, those opportunities, making that a normal part of my keiki's lives. And so a part of that Kiaʻi kuleana for them is malaming the ceremonies on Kaho'olawe. And so we go to makahiki, we go to ipuakane, and we're learning, and then so that we can take that back into our communities. And we can be makokau for that type of kuleana. And holding space, uplifting the aina, calling forth giving the best to the akua so that we continue to get the best in abundance. And those are all important elements of Kiaʻi too. That it's not always the ku'e, but it's also about holding space and protecting spaces so that we can have more abundance. And to me, it goes back to that aloha that we have for our family, the aloha that we have for our homeland, which is our makua hine, our aina, papa hana moku, and that's why it goes back to the mamas. And so I just always think about that as a la'ana of Kiaʻi that I want my keiki to remember. So now that my wahine has passed, a lot of my kuleana is reminding my keikis of her stories, of who mama was. And she has so many people in the community that love her and can help with that too. And so I kind of rely on people like Anui Nue to share the stories of mama, share the stories of Puna Lili Noe who aren't here. And so that my babies kind of can remember that not only from me, but from others who loved and knew them. And because those are qualities that I wish I could replicate for them, but hard, no mama. And so we're finding our ways to do it, but part of it is sharing the mo'olelo. Yeah, I'll start with that.
Mahalo nui for sharing that. That is so beautiful. And I love how you honor your wahine. She's truly loved and truly missed. When I think of Kiaʻi, I think of her. When I think of Aloha Aina, I think of her. When I think of, just the most manafo wahine, I think of her. So yes, mahalo for continuing to tell her stories. And you're really like good at like touching on my next Layana. So I actually was like thinking about how Nani came. And when I sitting in her class and just being this, starstruck student, and I listened to her, I was hanging on her every word. But I remember her saying a few times that our people cannot save our land and futures by crying and praying alone. And I remember when she said that the first time, I was just like, oh, because we saw ma'a, and she was saying, we're always ending with singing a song or doing a prayer, or but that's not enough. And that just like hit me to the core, and it was such an eye-opener. So although these practices are an integral part of who we are, the prayer, the mele, the ue, all of those things, how do you balance these practices and still model the importance of voice, resistance, the vivo ole, the empowerment? So I know you touched on it a little bit, Leana. Do you want to add a little bit more? Or I can move on and come back. You're muted, Kalamai.
Can you hear me? Okay, Kalamai. Yeah, no, Hikino and Kalamai might have to jump out, go close the imu in a little bit. But yeah, I think I got to review the question one more time and ask.
It's
My
more
mind-
about like, we cannot just cry and pray, that kind of stuff. And like, how
Yeah,
do you balance the two? How do you help your keiki kind of navigate those feelings, the anger, the sadness, and then having the ceremony and the spirituality, but still being very ku'e. And I know you really touched on a little bit of everything, but if you want to add anything, please feel free.
no, yeah, it's tough sometimes, but I think like the pule part is really, even though she might say, and the context might not be exactly there for me, but there is power in that, in the pule. And there is power in that. And, look at Hana, I think Molokai pule o'o, like just the power of our prayer and the power of pule as a lahui. I think, it's some of the struggle with the aloha aina is when we don't have the pule, then it's hard. And so what I think we saw with Mauna Kea was mass pule happening. Mass pule happening at specific times of the day and specific moments in time, which is really beautiful because not only on Oahu, or not only on Mauna Kea there was pule, but they were saying, oh, we're going to do this on these days. We're going to do sunrise, 6 o'clock. We're going to do midday, 12 o'clock. We're going to do sunset, 6 o'clock. Let's all pule at those times for the Mauna. And you almost see like, kind of like the Care Bear stare where everybody's standing and they blast up pule, and it just like shoots. You're seeing the power that it has, like when it kind of emanates from people too. And so there is a balance to that too, is knowing how to pule with intention and having the collective pule of everybody. I think there's a lot of power to that, but there's also the balance of gara huli kalima ilalo. And we can pule so much, for these things, and we mahalo for all of those blessings, but nothing beats when we huli kalima ilalo and start taking the steps or taking the action that it takes. And again, some of the Kiaʻi Hana isn't very easy. Sometimes it's like for the Mauna Kea, they had to sit in the cold, they had to endure that anu, they had to take on the forces, they had to chain themselves to areas. As just one example, our Kiaʻi local have to every day maintain the kuapa, maintain the papohaku, got to maintain, the local and clean things out and remove things so that they can have the abundance. And so you have to combine the pule elements and those pieces, and it has to balance with the hana kaulike and the work balance that is required, the sweat equity. And that's a big part of us for Kaolave is, like the pule part is super critical. We need all of that. But we also need people to give blood, sweat, and tears to the land because the land needs physical restoration as well as we need the prayers for the rain to come. But we also need to plant the mea kanus. We have to remove certain elements. We have to make trail. We have to, create fertile soil. We have to do the work as well as we have to stack the stone. We have to build the walls. We have to do those things as well as do the pule. And so I think that's the best way I can kind of explain it is they're both important and they're both powerful. The power with pule is you can combine many. Same with hands. You can combine many to create something amazing. Same thing with our lima. And so I think our kupuna had that dialed in. If you think about the building of Fit Loco as just the example, the building of Hale and the building of Lo'i, and how when even Captain Cook them came, blown away by the productivity of our people. That goes back to the balance of strong prayer and strong hands. And so I think that's a great point you guys bring up to remind our Kiaʻi that it cannot just be one or the other, but that they both kind of play a role in elevating each other.
Beautiful. So if you have to peel off, that's totally fine, Layana. I mean, you got through every now.
Mahalo nui and Maile and Hano for putting this together for our lahui, for our families. Aloha to all you ohana and anui nui, love you so much. Thank you for all that you do for our family and for our lahui. And really stoked to get to hop on. Kalamai just closing this email and trying to finish strong and But so much aloha to all you guys, and oni pa'a I ke aloha aina, oni pa'a no ke aloha ko kako o Hana, oni pa'a no ka lahui. Aloha kako.
Hi.
Love you, brother.
Love you guys.
Aloha
Malama.
nui.
Aloha, Laiana.
Weho.
Mahalo, ba.
Yo.
So Hano, would you like to add to that? You know, when we're talking about this balance, the spirituality, emotions, like anger, the crying we're talking about, right? Like our generation, we're kind of like this culture shock, and a generation before us, like, what did they do to us? Oh my gosh, they did that to us, and we got to try and get them back, you know. And then our keiki are experiencing a whole different thing, because it's like they're the next generation, so they didn't have to go through the same process of all these emotions and so forth. But going back to that question, like how do you balance the all those practices, and how have you navigated your way through balancing those things?
Again, I got to go back to what Laiana was hitting on about the wahine. You, babe. You've made life so ono that I want to be the best kane possible as your partner and as these children's dad and guide for them in this world. That being said, you gotta live by example. If you're gonna do stuff, do them with your kids. You cannot tell your kids what to do without you doing them. And if you do them, don't make them seem junk. Like, make them like what Laiana said. They gotta love the experience. So if you like them be on Kiaʻi, like I love being on Kiaʻi. I find it almost superhero action, and I want my kids to be superheroes also. I want them to be strong, smart. I like them save the planet. So they got to learn how to go in the mountain, in the ocean, in the classroom, in the front of the camera, you know, on the dinner table.
Can you talk a little bit about when I think about this, going back to the whole praying and the, you know, we cannot save ourselves by praying alone. It has to have a balance, yeah. The prayer and the work. I remember you sharing with me years ago that as a Kiaʻi loco, someone told you that what was it? What percent was work and what percent was spirituality in the work of a Kiaʻi loco? And you kept saying, I gotta work on spirituality. I want you to share about that.
Well, so learning about the loco i'a, the kāpuna said 90% of the loco i'a, or being a Kiaʻi loco, is spiritual. So then, so the 90% spiritual, 10% physical. I remember bragging, hey, we got the 10% down, and the 10% is still like, there's nothing. You know, there's nothing. It's just like, oh yeah, who you stay with? We stay with Uncle Walt, Molokai, 10% us. The physical part, we get them down, and then, like, you know, the pule, the spirituality, the essence, you know, the why. But yeah, and I think that applies to, even when I was as a cowboy, they said, you know, 70% is the horse, 30% is the cowboy. So, but yeah, the spiritual thing, and like what Laiana said, you cannot be one or the other. So we got to be balanced. And like our kāpuna, they had them dialed in, and I think that's where we off frequency right now, you know. And so some of us who get the 10% down really got to go jump on with some of the guys who get more of the spirituality down, and try to lift our children up to a higher level. But,
absolutely. Yeah, because not all of us as modern day Kanaka have the access or the experiences to prepare us for that type of prayer or ceremony. Yeah. So you're saying that seek it. If you want it, there's ways to seek it, right? Get it more
Yeah.
and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Types of events or ceremonies or groups that can allow that experience, for you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anoi, can you add anything to the whole spiritual and the Hana?
Yeah, Hiki no. I too remember sitting in Haunani's class and being shook by her words in that way. I was born and raised very strong Catholic, my family, my mother. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what? All we do is pray. Like and but I also, even in her words, I could still hear like what she was fighting and what she was battling. It was the Western religions, the Christianity, that type of thing. I also remember her saying things about, we cannot just olalo Hawaii. We have to do other things, and I remember that too was like, what am I doing then? Like I constantly was being challenged, which was of course what I needed. And so as a makua, I found that I think I've accepted I've learned to accept my spiritual upbringing, like the way my mother was. She was such a strong prayer warrior. And although her akua, like I guess as I've gotten older, I've seen and I saw the power of her pule. Like I saw it because she's like, whenever I would get into things, she's like, oh, ye of little faith, like go and pray. And then you know what? People would get healed and I'd be like, okay, there's something there. So for me, I grew up in a very spiritual household. And but she's also Hawaii. And what I do, I'm so blessed to have a mother like that, was that she and whenever things wouldn't happen, like I'd be like, oh man, it didn't happen. She goes, you didn't pray enough. you know and so what I'm learning now too, as we move in this world with our keiki being they are pushing forward, is that the more and more we seek the works of our kupuna, and we learn different oli, and that's pule, right? I mean, it's not separate. Those oli are the pule, and those things, those regiment things that we do are the pule. We are actively activating the spiritualness of our kupuna. And like talking about Mauna Kea, so my oldest daughter, she has the special gift of seeing kupuna. And like 2 days before the arrest, she had broken out in all of these like hives, and she had it looked like acne, and she never had acne. And she was, I mean, how many years ago? She was only like maybe 13 years old. She's like, Mom, my face is burning. Like it was all this and I have pictures too. She had it almost looked like welts on her. And then when she dreams, she kind of foretells things, and that's a whole other story. And I remember she woke up and she came into my room and she's like, Mom, I cannot sleep. And then the next day I said, well, what was your dream? She goes, Poliahu came in my dream. I said, Poliahu? She goes, yeah. She goes, I could see. She goes, all I could hear was constant chanting and screaming. And she goes, and then somebody was like, she kind of foresaw this, and she said, and then the police officers were talking about the LRAD, and all I could hear was that all these other these people, that were just shouting and shouting and shouting and shouting. She goes, and then all of a sudden I was taken to Poliahu. Okay, that sounds really strange, but right. And I said, and what? And she says, you need to pule. Pule for our people. Do the oli, do the pule. And so when we went up, we ended up going on the day of the arrest, not planning, but we were there. And we got up there, and she still was and her face, it was weird. She didn't feel like she was feverish. It was more like she felt cold, like her skin was super cold, but she was burning. And I talked to Auntie Pua and all of Auntie Pua, Ka Hale. She goes, oh yeah, because one of the elements of Poliahu is freezing. That's like that, like dry, like dry ice kind of freezing. She goes, it's so cold that it burns. And I said, okay, but we need to like fix this because my daughter is in pain. And so we gave our ho'okupua, put that ahu. And I promise, like, it didn't go away right away. But after the arrest and after everything, we had to take our keiki in the van and go away because we weren't sure what was going to happen. And the next day, it was better, like completely gone, completely gone. And so what I've learned from my keiki, right, and I've learned from being a mākua, and also, and I challenge people too because, ika olelo ke ola, right? Like our words have so much power. So you got to be really careful what you ask for too, because that's the pule. Like we say that you put it out in the universe, we make kind of fun of that, but I've learned that like the moment you start to put mana and energy into whatever you do, it can happen. So be really careful on what you say. And like my keiki, I learned so much from them because they are so much in tune than I will ever be. And that's what it's about, right? They can see things way before I can even see it. And one of the sad parts is like for Ko'iahi, she's 16 now, and she kind of shuns that side of her because it's very destructive because kupuna have no timeline like us, right? Their timeline is all the time. And but it's been a journey of how to facilitate that, of how to make sure like there's good in that, and how to maintain it for her in the future. I've dealt with a lot of other keiki that have that gift and they move away. And what's really interesting is the kupuna of those places come to them. Like all those Native American kupuna come to them because they are a light and a source for listening. And we've had to kind of facilitate some of those things. Like you gotta tell them that you're not their but it's really interesting because we've activated so much of our kupuna our DNA is like opening up like that, that I always say keiki magic, like they open spaces that we never knew existed. But it's it's now that I know they're becoming young adults, like your own keiki, it's like you got to find balance in that too, because now you're going to go in a broader world, in a world that doesn't necessarily accept that as much, or they take advantage of you. So how do we make sure that they are so grounded? And that's why I always say you got to ho'i to the people, come call home, connect, take off your slippers and touch the aina. And pule I do pule ikaika of whatever source. But I people struggle still. Our people really struggle with that Christianity, and I see the battle of that. And I tell people, Jesus, he's a pretty cool guy. If you read the Bible, he's a pretty cool guy. He'd be building wall with us. It's the people. It's the human people that seem to like make it this other thing of, that's just the human side of who we are. And so I just feel like that the kuleana, and it's such a beautiful thing the way it all goes, as long as we keep on drawing back to our aina and to our ocean and to our people of home. That and trust, you gotta trust it too. Trust that the good is gonna come out as long as your intentions are all mai ka'i. But oia iho la, kalamai.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Hey, Manny, for some reason you're on the main screen. Manny, are you muted? I think you might not be muted. You're on the spotlight, Manny. But I was thinking about what you said as far as the leo and the power of the leo. And you know, if we whether you're Christian, whether you're Buddhist, whether you know you worship Na'akua, Na'umakua, it has a common thread, is that all of everything is connected through this thing called mana, yeah, this creative force. And our leo, our voices, are able to tap into those frequencies that actually disturb things and make things happen, you know. And so you know, we've seen it ourselves, and I kept thinking of the Nanaulu, right? I'm sure you've seen it, right? We call the Nanaulu, and it never fails, Nanaulu cubs, and it makes its way to Ka Ho'olawe from Maui, right? The Nanaulu cloud is this cloud bridge that comes from Honuaula across, you know, Haleakala, and makes its way to Ka Ho'olawe. So when ceremony is done, you know, we pray for that Nanaulu cloud to come and bring rain. And every single time, no fail, on that walk back down the mountain, you see that Nanaulu slowly make its way across the ocean. And many more instances too have happened. But yeah, I think, you know, beyond the whole religion thing, I think it's incredibly important for us to continue ceremony, prayer, and to know the power of our leo and the collective leo. But let me try change the setting of how the view is. We'll make a gallery view here. Well, that's kind of like bringing us to the end of this conversation here. I think we covered like all the questions, and they overlapped because it's hard not to, right? But I wanted to just touch on one last thing before I forget. I know that in raising our keiki, like Hano mentioned, that it can cause tension and hakaka in the community, even between family members, when you're on opposite sides of the fence on your stance on certain things. So has that ever affected your children, or have you had to have conversations with your children about these types of things? This is like real life stuff, yeah. Anui, you wanna go with that? Is that too soon for you?
No.
Okay, mahalo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, like Hana said, you gotta bring them around. You know, they gotta experience that too. And you know, the father of my children likes to create all kinds of good stuff. And you know, and as a mother, although we're not together anymore, we acknowledge that, and I acknowledge that to them. I said, by the way, you're still part of him. So I as a mother of that of that, you know, I acknowledge the good in that, and that he likes to always create these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I have to go to work the next morning, or I have to do this the next day. And and even between he and I you know, I mean, to be really plain and simple, I don't act like that. That's not my ku'e. But I mahalo it, because we do need that. We need some rumble, right? We need the rumble out there. And but for my children, as they grow up too, I see like we also gotta work the balance, because they got it in them, you know. Like my daughter is ready to like go up at Kapalama campus and tell everybody that this is not a school for Hawaiian children, or this is not one Hawaiian school. And she's ready, and I'm like, Koyahi. And she's like, but mom. And then when she explains herself, she can explain it in such a way, like how I would explain it. I say, yeah, you should write one song. Write a mele, Koyahi. Write them, you know, write a poem, make it happen. And you know, like a battle with a science teacher up there, and they'll say, what is science? She goes, oh, I learned that the science is kumulipo. You know, so there's a battle where she can utilize what her father has with that quick tongue and that quick, you know, action, take the action and be verbal about it. But be very careful and very, you know, like a hakumele does, right? You write all those things and you throw it in that little poem and you just go boom. And I think, I don't know if I'm totally swaying away from the question, but I think that is something that I feel is like, you know, the hakaka with people in our community. I feel that even when my children go out in the community, they see both of us, you know. And And they might not agree with one or the other side of us in certain things, but you know, they are like all of the humans we've created. If we play it right, you know, they're beautifully, like, they're harmonious, and they can fit in all those little spots that need to be filled, and that they'll make it through with those people that have, because, you know, unfortunately, right, that's a lot of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with past traumas, past things that have happened, all the things. Half the time we don't even know what happened, right? But it's been so ingrained in us. And so I've really been very intentful with my children about acknowledging where they come from, you know, even with their father's side. And I know that's not easy for most ohana, but you know, as when we were married or when we were together, that was such an important part that, you know, this is our home. This is our Aina. We're gonna have to live here forever. So it's okay to disagree with each other, but do it with aloha. And yeah.
Absolutely. Mahalo. And we've had our own personal experiences. Yeah, Hana, you want to add to that about the little, like, you know, the tension with family and how we've kind of gotten through that? Family, friends, community, when we're on the opposite side of the fence.
I guess I think it goes back to being the example. And I look back and I can burn bridges easy. But I'm also good at building the bridge again. You know, and so you've seen it. And again, with you, some of these different projects that we had, teaching kids in the community, the same kids that belong to the people that were on the other side of the line. I don't hold them against the kid. I tell the kids when they come to our fish pond that I don't care what family you come from, over here you're safe. You know what I mean? So I know, so that's what I mean about bridge building. Like I burnt that bridge that their parents was on with the industry and the capitalist side, burn them. But the bridge that the kids are crossing to get to a better tomorrow, that's what we building, not only for our kids, but for their kids, you know? So I think it's very important that when you get into these situations, that it ends in a peaceful manner.
Absolutely. And it's not passed on as a generational thing. Because we've
Not
seen
when
that
demon or when
happen,
the crying, yeah.
right? Haka
It
from
needs,
this generation, grandma and this grandpa, whatever, haka because it was on the opposite side. And then 3 generations later, the kids are worried. They fall in love. It's like the Montagues and the Capulets. You know, we've really seen that happen. You know, it's like, well, I cannot go out with the Kayan that come from that bloodline, or that come from,
right.
you know, and it's because of these past battles, aloha Aina battles.
And I think the one advice I would give everybody, honestly, if you lick somebody, pick them up after you lick them. Love them. Explain them why you had to lick them, and then love them, and then pow.
And you better really love the kids, yeah? The kids had nothing to do with it.
And then when they pass, you wave. Yeah.
Yes, we are all
Peaceful.
educators, right? So we all have to leave that outside the classroom door. Like,
Yeah.
your mo'okuauhau is not how gonna judge how much I aloha you. Yeah.
And I think the last thing that I gotta say is mahalo this island for the way they've treated our kids. Like,
absolutely,
even all of the tension, the ku'e activity that we've shown. For me, the past 23 years, this island has very much loved our children and taking good care of
and
them.
we were worried about that when they were little. We were worried about that, you know, and there was nothing to worry about. So
never
mahalo.
have nothing for
For loving our babies.
Yeah.
But I wanted to close the night with just mahalo to everybody that hung out with us for the last hour, 20 minutes. We're gonna send you the recordings, so please share it with whoever you want to share it with. And yeah, have a beautiful weekend. We're going into the weekend. We're gonna be at Ola Ka'i, Kamakana Ali'i Shopping Mall this Saturday in Kapolei, celebrating Olelo Hawaii. There's a big celebration at the shopping mall there. So we're actually gonna fly down. And so we'll be there. We'll be performing from our Ho'okupu album. There'll be tons of different orgs representing Olelo Hawaii and Ike Hawaii and so forth. So if you're there, we hope to see you. But anue noe, mahalo
Thank you,
nui,
Anu Nui.
mahalo nui for all your mo'olelo and being so
Thank you,
just
Tita.
open to share.
Mahalo.
Aloha.
Mahalo, Maile. You know, I remember Hano before. He's so good. No? Mahalo.
Change,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Way more mellow. I know he was nuts, like for real nuts.
I
But yeah.
remember him. No. I love you.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Awiho, good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Awiho.